Good evening, faithful Poets Lighthouse sojourners. Thank you for joining me for our sixth episode of Season 1. I am your host, Finn Bell, pleased to be sharing more talented poets and their poetry with you today. Joining us on this episode is David Leo Sirois. David is a Canadian-American poet who has had 107 publications in 9 countries, and his work has been translated into 4 languages. He lived and performed in Paris for 7 years, but now hosts the Spoken World online global open mic from his native New Brunswick, Canada. He won 3rd prize in Winning Writers Wergle Flomp Humour Poetry Contest, that's a mouthful, and his poetry has appeared in journals such as the Bombay Review, the Poetry Village, One Hand Clapping, and the Sunday Tribune Online, among other journals. He is a regular feature at global events, as well as the international podcast and interviews. David is also a singer, songwriter, radio DJ, film, television, and theater actor. He is currently in the submission process with 3 of his manuscripts and is writing 4 more. Welcome, David.
Thank you so much. Great to be here.
It's wonderful to have you.
Thank you.
So I was having the delight of going over the poetry that you shared with me.
Thank
And
you. Great.
I like the little bit of history that you gave me, the background history. And so in that history, you have spoken previously of poetry in a trance that a friend faithfully wrote down, and lines of your poetry that you see in your dreams. Do these occurrences happen often for your poetry? And have they always produced poems that are gratifying to you?
Yes, very fortunately. And at times, like last night, I got 3 lines from dreams that I faithfully write down whenever I get them. And they're better poetry than I can write while conscious, in my opinion. And you saw some examples from the Bombay Review. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
Also, maybe my best poem is the trance-induced song for a Seeker of Eden that we'll see later.
Mm-hmm.
And I was encouraged, after bringing it into a poetry workshop with a famous, one of the best American poets, Stephen Kramer. Um, he encouraged me to take it the way of literature and revise it,
Mm-hmm.
and said, I hope you do. After having said my vision needs revision and my automatic writing needs rewriting.
Mm-hmm.
so I've been revising that one after my friend wrote it down for over 25 years, because it was something that was spoken automatically without my volition, as I collapsed in a trance while sitting with a friend after having had a vision. So it's I think that the poems that go beyond the poet,
Mm-hmm.
that are not just with an element of trying,
Okay.
as I hear in almost everything I read. Uh, there are poems, of course, like Kubla Khan, uh, dream poems that I've read or heard lines from a dream in a poem, and I am so fortunate to have that inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
My cat Butter is arriving to the show. She
Hi, Butter.
often joins me on Spoken World Online, my
Yes.
faithful co-host. So anyhow, yes, the poems that come in those alternate ways, I find more gratifying than the poetry of mine that's the result of trying. Uh, which one does in writing consciously, and the dream lines I don't revise whatsoever. They're all verbatim, and so I've kept those, and other things I revise constantly. Some poems for 1 to 25 years,
Mm-hmm.
many of the time 1 to 3 years, and so. Those poems that I wrote consciously take a lot of work, and I'm willing to do that but yes, the ones that come from dreams or from trance are very gratifying because they're beyond whatever inspiration I can have from the inside.
Yeah, that is fascinating, but I can completely relate with that too, because I
Right.
feel that some of my best poetry comes from, like what you said, that contrast between the trying and the trance state. Um, do you feel, if you can encapsulate it in just maybe a single sentence, what do you think it is about that dream or trance state that is so freeing to your poetry?
Um, there's a compelling electricity in those lines that
Mm,
galvanizes readers. So I truly appreciate the gift from
mm,
inside, and yes, it's something that there's a greater power and
yeah.
electrical inspiring quality to it than in lines that are written consciously. I find, at least of my poetry.
Mm.
So that's how I feel.
So aspiring poets out there, take notes. That is something to definitely look into. So we definitely want to hear more about David and his poetry, but let's do so after the break. Welcome back from the break. A while ago, you also mentioned about doing your revisions. And another thing I found really fascinating was you spoke about a poem that you were revising for 25 plus years.
Yes.
Um, so 25 plus years after their conception, you were faithfully adding lines um, to that poem. Do these poems in progress, do they fill you with apprehension because of their perpetually unfinished state, or is the fact that the end of the poem that it's not been determined yet, is that something that's more exciting than apprehensive?
It's more exciting. I mean, I translate Paul Valéry, and one of his famous quotes is, "A poem is never finished, only accomplished. No, only abandoned. A poem is never finished, only abandoned." And I find it funny, and laugh at myself for continuously working on stuff. And if it wasn't for workshops and critique from really great poets. I wouldn't be able to write the way I do, better and better. So the revision process for me is fun. It's just what I do, and others might think it's lots of hard work or
Mm.
frustrating or what have you. But for me, it's just really fun. It's what I do.
That's good. That's good. Do you find that it takes this sort of natural cadence to, like you said, abandon these poems and then kind of rediscover them, sort of like an old lover that did not work at first, and then you came back and it worked. The relationship worked this time around.
Right. Uh, yes, it does feel that way. Um, and take its natural cadence, and uh, revisions may come to me like when I'm, I don't know, getting onto a bus or walking around or driving to work. I've even stopped the car and written on notepads. Uh, so yeah, the revision process is great, and it's wonderful seeing things anew in any situation in life, and from a better perspective, having a better relationship with it.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I really enjoy that, and abandoning a poem, it being frozen in a publication
Mm.
somewhere, uh, doesn't stop me from continuing to revise it, and I always feel it could be better, and that I could be better as a poet.
That intrigued me with the way that you phrased it as as frozen.
Hmm.
Tell me what you mean by elaborate a little bit more when you say that it's frozen in a publication.
Well, it's captured in a very certain form,
Okay.
at a certain stage, in
Hmm.
black and white, set in stone, so to speak, on a page. So it's not going to change uh, in the book. It's not
Yeah.
going to change on the website of a literature journal online. So that's what I mean by frozen. And in a deeper sense, anything that's put into words is frozen in an unchanging way, unless one revises it, because words are an abstraction, of course,
Yes.
to one degree from what's actually around us.
If you could release it, say for example, you were able to somehow um, make it this thing that you can release from this prison of being frozen, what would happen? Would it undergo further revisions? Would it become something completely different? What would happen? Tell us a little bit of a story about that.
Well, there are poems I wrote in Paris that I'm still revising, and they've become totally different and set in a different place, set in this area, the bridge between Maine and New Brunswick, Canada. Uh, and there's a poem I wrote in Paris called Mirror, for example,
Hmm.
that I revised for a contest, and it
Hmm.
became at least twice as long and 100 times better. And because I wanted it to win the contest, I threw all my best lines, some from other poems,
Hmm.
into it to kind of create what I thought was like a super poem that would be like wowing the judges. So things that were nuggets I held in my pocket in Paris have become like for me gold sculptures, statues.
I like that. I like the way that you put that. That's great. That we aspire to have that happen with
Yes.
our poetry nuggets to golden statues. So, David, the poems that you shared with us have all been in English, and I know they have been translated into multiple languages. But is there another language that you write in that you are just completely enchanted by,
Yes.
that we don't know about?
Well, French is my favorite language, and I'm certainly a Francophile. And sometimes I do write in French, and it's
Mm,
very satisfying. It's very gratifying and fulfilling because I can say things that sound so much better in French. And a lot of those poems, I
feel like
have the
that.
English translation, my
Yeah.
own translation next to it. And Beckett is such an inspiration to me
Hmm.
that I find that the translation into English is not as good. Sometimes it may make an equally good poem because they change it, uh, but it's very a lovely experience to have written something in French, which I am 75% fluent in.
Okay.
You know, because it feels great, it sounds great, it looks great, and I like the language better than English.
If you can, just off the top of your head, what is a delectable phrase that you go back to, in your poetry, but other writings that's in French that has no immediate translation in English, but it just fits what you're talking about perfectly. It's the most perfect description. What would that
Oh,
be?
thank you. Um, uh, Les règles du rêve,
Mm.
which actually can be translated as the rules of the dream or rules of the
Uh,
dream. Life being according to many, a dream. Uh, but we must follow the rules of the dream, like gravity, for example, and our words affecting other people, and all kinds of things. There are rules of the dream, and so I like that line "Les règles du rêve." I have a
mhm.
poem by that name in French, uh, and other little lines that I keep repeating, like poème autonome, and this really is not well translatable. Poème autonome de l'automne. So it's like a poem that takes care of itself, an automatic poem, a self-sufficient poem of
Yeah,
autumn.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it sounds better as poème autonome de l'automne. you know.
It definitely does. Definitely. There are some languages that are appetizers. There are some that are like necessary meals, and there are ones like French and Spanish, which are just beautiful, well thought out buffets,
Mm,
feasts. And
yes,
that's how I feel um, about French and Spanish. And I'm a little biased to my native tongue, Filipino.
right. I'm honored to have been translated into French and Spanish,
Mm.
along with German, and I'm very honored that I'm going to be translated into Hindi
Ah,
soon, having been published in India and given so many readings where all the other poets, or almost all, are Bengali or Marathi speakers or Hindi
mhm.
speakers. And the hosts and guests talk back and forth in Bengali, for example, at a show I was on, and then come back to asking me to read in English.
Yeah.
So I'm honored to be about to be translated in more languages.
Hindi is gorgeous. I just For me it is akin to listening to a supplication, to a prayer.
Wow,
I love that
absolutely.
the cadence of it, the meditative quality of it. So that
That's
was really
great.
beautiful that you included Hindi. I'd almost forgotten, and that is definitely true, especially as of late, hearing some Hindi poets share on global platforms.
Right, absolutely. And I chant every day in Sanskrit,
Oh,
uh, hymns that I received, and anyone can chant from like to Ganesh or Shiva or um, to the Guru, these kind of things that I received from being on a spiritual path and having a guru
mm,
from India. So I cherish Sanskrit and some of the words that there's really no translation for in other
mhm.
languages. Uh, so Hindi will be great to be translated into.
Would you say that chanting is something of your pre poetry day writing ritual? Would that Does that enrich your poetry writing daily?
Absolutely, because not only does it wake me up more on
Mm.
several levels and clear away bad vibes, bad moods. Sometimes I wake up in a horrible, miserable state, and after chanting right as I wake, and then chanting, a little later on in the morning, 15 minutes later, what have you, um, then I'm often in the best of moods and a great state to go to work or to then to talk to people. But on another level, chanting to God in any way um, opens me up to spiritual experiences
Mm.
and helps me to write the way I attempt to, speaking on a greater level with a more powerful voice because of having supplicated the gods. I have a line called "Feed the gods; it'll do you good."
That's catchy right there.
Right, thanks.
You also gave me now you let me in on the secret as to why you are so delightfully in a good mood every time I
Ah,
see you at
thanks.
Spoken World. There you go. Now I figured out the
Right.
mystery.
I charge myself up. And then I'm so delighted to be among all these great poets and
Mm.
like minded people, many of them spiritual seekers, and the show has a great vibe. Uh, so that cheers me up even more, and I feel high when I'm performing anyway. So
Ah,
it all helps me be like the shiny, happy guy hosting the show.
I love that natural high. Ah, goodness.
Thanks.
We it looks like we are actually hitting our the mark where we are almost ending our show. And I don't want to end it without you giving us such a treat today and reading one of your original poems, which I believe is titled Song for a Seeker of Eden, that appears to have been included in various publications. I would love for you to share that with us now, if you could.
Thank you so much. Yes. So this is the poem, just so the readers know that I fell over, collapsed, and my mouth started moving, and a friend wrote down what I said that I've revised for more than 25 years, since 1995 when it came to me. So, Song for a Seeker of Eden. Over the face of naked waters, a nameless breath was blowing. In wide wind, white seeds of weakness and weightless days of realization whirled in one confused flurry. A subtle hand separated light from dark, dark from salted sky, and turned to lift solid air above from undulating dark seas beneath. On the second day, a sphere of raw fire was carried up into blank dark to make day, and a round stone mirror rose into the opposing sky in a shower of sparks to make night. Our globe's green skin split into countless shoots of wet grass, and the bark of trees burst into soft green flames. Blizzards of birds brought fresh brilliance to foliage, and seven oceans flooded with the flashing blue life of countless fish. At the next dawn, dark infant soil learned new red languages, pulses of horses and bulls. Massive shadows of elephants and rams spilled into wildness of rain wind. On the following day, a plot of dull clay was shaped into articulate human fingers. Between blood and blood, skin and skin, man and woman, the two took shape. Held in delicate hands of sentient trees, one unique in rich scarlet fruit, pregnant with secrets and seeds that carried the rumor of death. Amidst wrinkled branches, a serpent made of the yellow muscle of want wound its insidious whisper. You will know yourselves and fathom the sky if you bite this blood-colored fruit. Each stretched a fleshy hand toward one apple that was their own crimson consciousness. Man and woman shared that dark-starred fruit until their lips bled with vision, taste of sunset inside the sky. Naked, they ate the red within the red as the first leaf wrinkled and blindly fell.
Bravo. Oh my goodness. Gorgeous, gorgeous.
Thank you.
It was like being in a fever dream, but something that was pleasant,
Mm,
not a scary, not a disturbing one. A little bit that moment, exactly that moment before waking, where you're still a little bit in subconscious. So you're
wow.
in between that sleeping phase and that waking phase, and it's that beautiful, elusive thing that just doesn't stay with you the whole day. So you want to hold on to it. Ephemeral, it leaves you, and you
Right.
captured it right there in that moment. I so
Wow.
enjoyed this, David, and
Me
I wish
too.
I could ask you so many more questions and just have a much longer conversation, but I will actually leave you with one question. So, we I just recently found this snippet of a poet who is based in Albuquerque. His name is Nick de Pascal. He has a poem titled Heaven, and I would like you to give a new ending line that speaks to your life, based on this line, the ending line. I'd like you to give it an ending. So don't think too hard about it. Just go with what your heart and your soul is telling you.
Thank
And
you.
so it goes. I ask you, pigeons scoot and finches hop and cicadas shout. How would you finish that line?
The sun and moon and you and I share one soul between us.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you to everyone for tuning in to the Poet's Lighthouse today. If you wish to know more about our guest today, please see his page at davidsirois.wordpress.com and reverbnation.com/David Leo Sirois. And if you were absolutely enchanted with his poetry, reading, and crave more, please pick up his book, Humble Doves, which is available on Amazon. Please remember to show your support of the Poetry Global Network by subscribing to our YouTube channel and liking and sharing our videos. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.